Hello, everyone, and welcome to Main Deck Monday, your source for meta and memes. Your host, Joshsampson, and this week we are going to go over the one and only Quest Rogue. So, Quest Rogue is a combo deck. It's a deck that you have one objective. Your entire deck is built around achieving that objective the best way possible. And once you execute your objective, it is really, really, really hard for you to lose. You don't usually one-shot people. It is possible in this deck, but usually you're just getting to the end goal, and that's going to get you the win. So what we're going to do, as always, is we're going to go over the important cards in the deck, see how this deck ticks, what this is trying to do, and from there, see what kind of tech cards we have for THL, what kind of matchups this really wants to go against, what you don't want to face, and just kind of give you a good old general rundown here. So, first card we're going to look at is the namesake of the deck. It is the Rogue Quest, Cavern Below. So, this card actually recently had a nerf, and the nerf hit this deck hard. You used to have to play way less minions with the same name to use the quest. And the entire deck just kind of fell off the face of the earth and wasn't around for a while. Once it came back, and it's starting to show up here and there again, the deck is built very differently. You have a kind of a different end goal with the game to get the quest completed. So we're going to kind of go over that here. So if you didn't know, once you complete this quest, you get a 5-mana spell that makes it to where your minions permanently are just 5/5s. They can still take damage once they become 5/5s, but anytime you play a minion, it is now just a 5/5. Whether it's a 1-mana creature you're playing or a bigger creature, they are 5/5s. So we need to play a bunch of minions with the same name. So how are we doing that? Well, the first big card is Shadow Step. It lets you replay the minion, pretty much all of your minions except for Cold Light Oracle, Sonya, and Zola are all 2-mana or less. So usually you just get to play your minion for free again, so it doesn't cost you anything to replay it, and it's just free copies of any creature in your deck. You also get to play Sonya. So Sonya is one of the new cards that really made this deck come back. So whenever a minion dies, you get a 1/1 copy of it to your hand that costs 1. So what it lets you do is it lets you, later in the game, if you haven't completed the quest yet, you can actually play Sonya and then just play one of your creatures that has charge, like Patches or Stone Tusk Boar or Southsea Deckhand, and you play it, you run it into their minion, it dies, you get a 1/1 copy of it, you play it again, you run into their minion, and if you have 8 mana, you can actually complete the quest all in one turn, and it's just done. You have it finished. Not to mention, you still have a 1-mana 1/1 in your hand after you complete the quest, which you can then play after playing the quest to have a 1-mana 5/5, which is so good. Sonya is one of the best cards in this deck. You also get Zola the Gorgon. Zola the Gorgon, it's just another Shadow Step type effect. You're just trying to put another copy of these cards in your hand. It lets you play Sonya. If Sonya lives a turn or things, you can make extra copies. Copying Cold Light Oracles is really cool. Sometimes you go on the mill plan. So you have a lot of versatility with this card. You can get everything back. One of the other cards that you don't really see in the old lists when this first became a deck before the nerf is Vanish. So Vanish lets you bounce not only all of your minions back to your hand so you can help complete the quest, but there's so many decks that are just putting big threats for cheap into play. Things like vanishing a bunch of Void Lords, or vanishing the Dragon Priest deck that is just running nothing but minions with Spiteful Summoner at the top and just bouncing all of them back to the hand and resetting them. It's so good, and it's really, really versatile because you can use it offensively by trying to complete your quest faster, as well as defensively to get things off the board and burn a bunch of cards, because your opponent is also drawing cards because you're playing things like Cold Light Oracle and Shadow Stepping your Cold Light Oracle, and then you're vanishing all their minions to the hand. So sometimes you can actually just completely get rid of Void Lords forever by doing that. So it's really, really versatile, and that's really what the deck is trying to do. You run a lot of cards to bounce a lot of things with Battle Cries, things like Novice Engineer and Cold Light Oracles are your main targets that you're wanting to bounce over and over and over again. And Glacial Shards, being able to turn down the tempo against you so that way you can live long enough to finish the quest and do that. Everything else is either trying to bounce things or it has charge to make you win the game faster, so it's really, really good. Now, in THL, we have a lot of tech cards. This deck is really cool because some decks you don't get very many, but because this deck is all about bouncing minions to your hand, anything that has a really good battle cry effect that you usually only get one effect of is a really good one of tech card of this deck. So we have things like Galaga Crawler. With all of the pirates everywhere, if you're expecting a pirate lineup, things like your opponent is bringing, if they bring like rogue and warrior, where they might be playing pirate warrior as well, and they might be playing like aggro druid, taking in a Galaga Crawler can eat a South Sea deckhand, it can hit a swashbuckler, it can hit a South Sea captain, and then you get to bounce to your hand and do it again to eat their second one to hit their patches as well. So it's really, really versatile. If your opponent is bringing Paladin, you expect them to bring Murloc Paladin. You can also bring in Hungry Crabs, the other crab-like creature that's an awesome tech card, where you just get to bounce it and you just get really, really good value. You eat their crab, you eat their Murloc, you get a 3/4 body. Your 3/4 body hits their 2/2. It's now a 3/2 body. You bounce to your hand, eat their other Murloc, and it's just killed 3 Murlocs almost all by itself. So it's really, really good if you expect the Murlocs. There's not a lot around, but the Paladin deck does sometimes just run the Murloc package, and it's really good. So it's things to keep an eye out for. We also have things like Eater of Secrets. If your opponent's bringing Mage, all the Mage decks are either Tempo Mage, which runs a bunch of secrets, or they're Quest Mage type effects that are running a bunch of ice blocks that let you just push through. They might think, oh, well, I don't have to freeze all of his minions this turn because I have an ice block up. He's going to pop it, and then I'll freeze and Doomsayer him. Well, you just get to play Eater of Secrets, and they die. So it's really, really, really good. And lastly, we have 2 last cards. We have Acidic Swamp Ooze, which is going to be our last minion. And again, there's a lot of weapons floating around. The Shaman runs their 2-mana Jade weapon. You opposing rogues you can hit weapons on. You get to hit things like the Skull of Minara out of the Q-block decks. And this card can hit a lot of things, just incidentally, because there's so many weapons. If you hit a Medivh weapon even, like they're everywhere. That being said, you get to bounce and hit their second weapon if they have more than just one. So it's really, really strong. And I'd probably play this over Harrison Jones just because Harrison Jones costs 5 mana and your curve is just so low. A 5 mana creature is really hard for this deck to utilize. Lastly, we have our one non-minion creature, which is going to be Valera the Hollow. So Valera the Hollow changes your hero power, gains you 5 life, and gives you stealth, so you're not going to take any damage for a turn, so you get a nice little time walk for a turn. And then when you come back, you get a 1-mana spell that whenever you play something else, it becomes that spell. So it lets you chain Cold Light Oracles, or put 2 Sonyas on the battlefield and then attack with Apaches. And you get to complete the quest really, really, really quick with this card, and it's really good if you're expecting the games to go really, really long. But usually it's unneeded, which is why it's not actually in the main deck. So we're going to talk about the matchups a bit. So this deck really, really excels at beating the control decks, things like Control Warlock and Priest. If you just play against Control Warlock, Priest, and even Control Warrior, it's almost impossible to lose because you just have all the time in the world to finish the quest. You just bounce your Novice Engineers a bunch of times, you draw a bunch of cards, you complete the quest, you put 2 or 3 bodies on the floor, hit them for 15, they have to kill everything, you hit them for 15, they try to kill everything, and they can only do that so long. You just have never-ending 5/5 creatures for 1 or 2 mana. And a lot of them actually have charge as well, so sometimes you can one-shot them where you play a Patches, you hit them, you bounce your Patches, you play your Patches, you hit them, you bounce it, you hit them, you South Sea, and you get a Bluegill Warrior in there too, and all of a sudden you're hitting for 25-30 points of damage out of nowhere with nothing on the board before the turn even started. And so this deck really excels there. Now it does struggle with the control deck, or with the aggro decks. So the aggressive decks can really get under it. You have to really race them and really draw your Glacial Shards. You have to slow them down as much as possible while you slowly complete the quest. But if you complete the quest and you're still at a reasonable health total, it's impossible to lose because your minions are just always better than theirs. It doesn't matter what they play, because if you complete the quest on turn 5 or turn 6, on turn 7 you're putting 4 or 5 5/5s into play, and they're not matching that with whatever they're doing if they're playing an aggressive deck. So as long as you can live a turn or two, against the aggressive decks, you can also play Wax Elemental as soon as you complete the quest, and all of a sudden you have 1 mana 5/5 Taunt Divine Shields that are really hard for aggressive decks to get through. But keep in mind, Spellbreaker can pop the Taunt and the Divine Shield, but it'll stay at 5/5, which is really good. So it really does play around the Spellbreaker for the most part. And you can also prep and vanish to put a bunch of 1/1s back to their hand, or if they play a living mana because they're playing aggro druid, vanishing all their living mana things keeps them from ever getting their mana back, which is insane, and then you have all the time in the world. So the deck is really strong, really versatile, and it's really, really good if you're trying to target the Priest or the Warlock. That being said, this is your Main Deck Monday for the week. Keep an eye out. There will be a follow-up video with guest star Sage coming in and helping us play the deck, telling us how to play, how it ticks, and giving you some nice gameplay. That said, peace out and have a great night.